Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the second episode of the Fang podcast. I'm pleasantly surprised with the positive feedback that I received from episode 1. It seemed like what I was saying resonated with a lot of people, and honestly, guys, that TED Talk is amazing. I just have never related to something like that, and I think that it's important for me to say that I am in no way associated with TED Talk or Terry Trespizio, the woman who gave the talk. I was just shown the video and was floored, so I wanted to share it. And something that I really wanted to do with this podcast is, yes, talk about dental hygiene school and oral health, but I also want to talk about life. I want to incorporate things that I've learned from my journey. So you're not getting this robotic spewing of information from me, you're getting my personal stories and discoveries. Like, I know that I come across really young to people, but I started dental hygiene school a bit later. I felt so old going back to college at 22, and I know that sounds ridiculous because 22 is so young, but where I live, you finish high school at 17, and then most kids go to college from like 17 to 20 and then are in university. And I started university initially at 19, so I felt pretty old coming back to the same campus and being like, I'm back. And everybody that I knew there, all of my old friends, they were gone, right? And now having just regraduated college at 26, I feel like I definitely have a lot of perspective that I didn't before, and I for sure want to share that. So obviously we're still audio only. I'm thinking of starting to bring guests on around episode 4, something like that. So once I have guests, I'll definitely add that visual element and record the podcast too, since apparently some people love to watch podcasts and not just listen. And I understand that you get to see the person while they're talking, their facial expressions, how they interact, etc. I'm also planning on buying a professional microphone. So I apologize if the audio is not amazing this episode and also in the first episode. I'm just doing my best and kind of just going for it. Like I said, if you always wait for things to be perfect, then you're probably never going to start. So let's get to the podcast. Okay, so all the followers of Kelly RDH and the Fangirl podcast are now chameleons. I will be explaining that in just a second, so bear with me, okay? Again, if you listen to the podcast and you want, you can follow me on Instagram where I post a bunch of stuff about upcoming episodes and some funny content. I also post facts about oral hygiene and being a dental hygienist. And if you're interested, I post my own creative writing that doesn't have anything to do with dental hygiene. I just wanted to begin establishing myself as a writer as well because it's something that I've always loved doing and I want to publish my first novel someday. So, why am I now referring to you guys as chameleons? Well, thank you for not asking. It's because I don't like just saying, hey friends, or hey guys, whenever I'm making a post or starting the podcast. And in the first episode, I was talking about how I'm a chameleon because I like a whole bunch of different things and don't like being put in a certain lane. And nobody should feel like they have to be just one thing, right? You can be anything that you want to. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's true. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. What I talk about in this episode is actually one of the first times I started to realize that. And that was when I had to go back to school to complete my prerequisite courses. So while I love the handle Kelly RDH, it doesn't really suit me as a whole. So I'm going to be doing a little rebranding and calling myself Kelly Chameleon, and whoever follows me are chameleons too. Okay, so what prerequisite courses did I need to get into hygiene school? Well, along with a high school diploma, I needed advanced math, physics, and chemistry. It was very competitive to get in. I was told by many teachers they rarely take anybody out of high school. Most of my peers in the program already had a college degree, and some already had a university degree. Some had been dentists in their home countries. In curiosity, we'd asked the teacher how many applicants there were in the year that I started the program, and we're told there'd been around 200 and that 38 had been accepted. So definitely a competitive program to get into. And when I started at adult ed, to get the prerequisite courses. Remember, I hadn't finished high school in advanced math, I'd left. So that's why I had to go back and do these courses. But yeah, when I got there, I did chemistry first, and the teacher said, like, the first day, look, there's a bias against adult education. And if you want to get into a college program and you don't get like an 80, 85 in your courses here, then just forget it. And I appreciated her honesty, but it was definitely intimidating. I had no idea whether that was even a possibility for me, considering my past experiences in science or math, but I just had to do it. And as it turned out, I didn't find chemistry or physics that challenging. It was the advanced math that I found challenging. I failed it the first time, and luckily I got a conditional acceptance into dental hygiene school without it. I even went to the college administration and was like, do I have to do it? And they were like, yeah, it's a departmental requirement. So I had one last chance. There was one more course that would finish like not even a month before dental hygiene school started. It was the most scorching hot summer in my city in like 100 years. I tried to source that but couldn't quite find what I was looking for. However, it did break records for heat waves, and I had to get up every day and travel to the middle of a suburban neighborhood that wasn't easy to get to by public transportation because the bus times would just not line up, and I'd wait like half an hour at one bus stop playing Animal Crossing. And the class was in, no joke, the basement of an abandoned elementary school. And it's like the school was abandoned. Why did we have to use a classroom in the basement? And not only that, but the classroom um, right next to us was a class for people learning English. So you just hear like 30 people yelling the same sentence over and over. Um, like that was there was no reason for that. Why were we next to each other? Anyway, what I did like was the bathrooms. The bathrooms were made for kids. I'm not that short, but I'm not tall either. I'm 5'2", and all the mirrors in the bathrooms are usually like 90% unusable for me. It's just a whole bunch of empty space. But the sink and the mirrors in the kids' bathrooms were the perfect height for me. I was in this advanced math course for so long that I had two separate teachers. One of them had a bunch of exotic animals for some reason, even though he lived in a condo and he brought them to school one day. You could just hear my confusion talking about this. He brought like an armadillo and a flying squirrel. Um, I don't know. The flying squirrel actually jumped on a girl and she started screaming. Anyway, I used to call what I did in that class hieroglyphics, and I called it that because I can't read hieroglyphics, and I couldn't read that math. If I find a photo of some of my work from advanced math, then I'll post it and you'll know what I mean. And I started off bad. I was getting like 20s to 40s, and I had no idea what I was doing. And then, you know what I did? I studied. I studied for like 4 hours a day. That might not sound like that much, but I've never been a studier. It was like all my thoughts were math. I would leave my desk after and be unsure how to communicate in English. I'd feel like an alien. But I slowly got better at math until I became really good, and I started getting high 80s and 90s, and I passed, obviously. That's one of the first things that really made me feel like I could do anything. You know, that person that's like, I can't do math. I just can't do it. I was that person. I was not good at math, but I had to become good at math for at least a while, right? So I did. Okay, let me tell you some more funny stories. I took chemistry first, right? There was this guy in the class who'd sit at the back near the door in a chair. He wouldn't sit behind a desk like everybody else. He'd sit just in a chair near the door. And he didn't have any stuff with him. And he'd wear these dark sunglasses, never took them off, and he'd just sit there every day like that. Would never participate at all, never asked questions, never answered questions, but the teacher had no reason to throw him out because technically he wasn't disturbing anybody. I took physics next, and he did the exact same thing. I was bewildered to see that he was taking another class. How was he doing? Was he passing these classes? No idea. For all I know, he could have been a genius who didn't need to write down anything and would just sit there and wait for the unit test. And now on to the title of the episode. So, very frequently, I'd wait in the school cafeteria to get picked up. And nearly every day, there was some kind of weird thing that would happen. There was once a fight between two girls over who'd get to see the guidance counselor first, and one girl actually knocked one of the other girls' teeth out. Ironically, the girl who lost her tooth ended up in dental hygiene like 2 years later. I'd have guys ask me what my astrology sign is. I didn't know that was a real thing. Um, Not astrology, but that being a pickup line. And usually I would just want to eat and or leave. Sometimes I would end up waiting outside, but there was one day when I happened to be in the cafeteria and the intercom comes on, and I'm pretty sure it was the principal of the school talking. And she asked if the students could please stop bringing lean to school. And she's going on about how it's inappropriate for school property and blah blah. And I'm just sitting there like, is this real? Like, I never thought I would hear the principal of a school ask their students to stop bringing lean to school. And it wasn't just that, it was the way she said it. She actually said please, which I just thought was funny and pretty much summed up my time in adult education. Like, can you guys please stop bringing lean to school? But it was a great school, and I genuinely liked my teachers. It just comes with the territory that there were some people who wanted to be there and some who didn't, and their behavior very much reflected that. So it was definitely quite a journey just to get into the program. I'd say the prerequisites, I mean, it definitely took me like a whole year because, like I said, I had to do the chemistry, physics, and I had to do the math class twice. Yeah, it was long, and it definitely kind of felt like it didn't feel like I was doing something that would eventually allow me to become a dental hygienist. Like, those courses are just so far removed from what I would actually do later on that, I mean, for a long time, it felt really strange. Even in the first year of the dental hygiene program, it didn't really feel like I was in the dental hygiene program, which I'm going to talk about next time on the podcast. Basically, the next podcast is going to be all about the least dental hygiene parts of becoming a dental hygienist. And I'm mostly going to be talking about my first year courses in the program. The program was 3 years, and the first year was a lot of courses that, yes, they were related to dental hygiene, but you don't really understand why at first. So for example, I'm going to talk about why I had to dissect a fetal pig. And just things like that, they don't tell you about dental hygiene school and that you wouldn't be expecting that you'd have to do, right? Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with another TED Talk that I think is really great. It's called Teeth, Your Body's Early Warning System. It's by Marielle Parisot. And what I love about it is that it talks a lot about diet culture in the Western world and kind of attempts to take away the normalization of cavities. I think a lot of people don't really see cavities as a big deal, but enamel, which is the outer surface of teeth, is the hardest substance in the human body. Here's one quote from the talk. How about transforming a dental visit into a whole health advantage? Imagine for a moment that your child's dentist, after finding some white spots on a few teeth, not even full-blown tooth decay yet, with full concern for your child's health, prompts you and a dental medical team to troubleshoot why enamel, the hardest tissue in your child's whole body, is breaking down, thus leading to the interception of not only full-blown tooth decay, but also other diet-related diseases before they manifest. I'll link the talk in my Instagram, but yeah, it's really great. Honestly, probably one of the most striking things I kind of realized after starting dental hygiene school that I never thought about before was that you only have one set of adult teeth. And I know that's kind of like this obvious given that everybody knows, but nobody like really considers, you know what I mean? Once you lose a tooth, you can't get it back. Of course, you can replace it with materials like fillings or bridge, crown, implant, depending on the extent to which you lost that tooth, right? But it's never going to be the same, you know what I mean? You're never going to get your tooth back. And I just found that really crazy. And the idea that your teeth are supposed to last a whole lifetime, right? And they don't. Why is that? You know? And I think cavities in general are definitely something that should be pointing you towards a greater issue. And most people just don't see it that way. Of course, I want to acknowledge there are a lot of factors aside from diet that can make you more susceptible to cavities, things you actually cannot control, such as genetics, the makeup of your saliva, a whole bunch of things. So I don't want you to take away like, oh, if I change my diet, like that's kind of the root cause of tooth decay. No, of course, there is no issue that large that can be solved that simply. But I just feel like it's something that is not spoken about as frequently, just kind of looking at cavities in a more considerate way as an actual problem with your health and not just, oh, you know, whatever, it's normal, right? Okay, I hope you enjoyed the podcast, chameleons. Until next time.